Hello everyone, welcome to Analog IAS Current Affair Analysis for 21st August 2020, and these are the couple of articles we'll be dealing today. The first article for the day is taken from the Hindu and it is titled Technology as an Enabler. So this is in the context of the new educational policy that came up in this year. So this is coming out after 34 years. Now one might wonder why it took such a long time for the government to come up with a policy on education. So the matter of fact in this context is it has been a really contentious issue about letting go of certain powers. For example, there were way too many regulatory bodies with respect to education and skill development, and there was a definite need to look at education to meet the needs of the evolving times. So especially in the context where industrial revolution 4.0 or the information age is trying to dominate the future of our economic course, it is an imperative for the government and also the country to come up with a new educational policy that would address the needs of this internet revolution or the industrial revolution 4.0, which is driven by artificial intelligence, big data, and internet of things. Basically, we're talking about cyber physical systems. So in this context, one of the biggest question that has arisen out of this debate on NEP is the fact that what is the role of technology in imparting education. So definitely we'll agree that technology will act as an enabler in our education system if we use it in a proper way. But the biggest arguments against the use of technology is one, digital divide, that is lack of access to internet and mobile phones. The second aspect that we're talking about is equity. So technology as such is not associated with inclusion and equity, because generally if we take a look at the perception of the society, always traditionally it is the middle income families, and before that the higher income families who used to have a computer at their place. Now right now if you talk about education and using technology as a driver for education, this equity aspect is definitely missing, because a lot of families cannot afford a smartphone for their kids if they want to carry out education. So government must do something to break this digital divide and ensuring that there is equity of both opportunity as well as access. So there are two key phrases used in this article which can be used directly in our exam verbatim. The first one is democratization of technology access. So when we say that democratization of technology access should happen, we only mean that mobile phones and internet should be provided to all sections of society irrespective of their poverty standards. Second thing, we are talking about values of inclusion. It should be institutionalized. When you hear the word institutionalized, it only means that there should be legislations in place to act as facilitation for people who are deprived of these needs. For example, if say the government wants to carry out a program through digital mode or impart education through digital mode, there should be a law which grants access to a mobile phone and a high speed internet to a kid if he wants to access that education module. So that should be the way we have to deal with this. These are the prerequisites on which technology can be used as a way forward for realizing the objectives of this new educational policy. So the second part of the problem is the various sections of the society which this policy should aim to address. Firstly, we have certain sections like SC, ST and OBC. A lot of students who are studying in higher educational institutions are most probably first generation students from their families. As a result, there is a possibility that this student diversity manifests itself at university level in two different kinds. First one is the fact that fellow students belonging to upper classes and from urban backgrounds have a chance to mingle with these people and understand their perspective and problems, and that brings about a curriculum on a culture of national integration. So the second aspect which is also very prevalent, is the discrimination that these students face. This problem can be addressed only when we institutionalize certain measures as rights. So, in the absence of these, it would be a big issue to be addressed, because when we're talking about the aspect of remote learning through use of technology, there is nothing in the policy that tries to address this issue of discrimination when it advocates remote learning, especially in the context of the pandemic that we are witnessing right now. So, the education policy also talks about the National Educational Technology Forum, which acts as a nodal agency to advise institutions about how technology should be used to reach out to a larger audience. Now, the best part of this discourse on technology in our new educational policy is the fact that our national education policy has finally ensured that technology can be used as a additional input rather than a substitute. So it has explicitly identified the need to use technology as an additional input to empower the student who has the facility to learn things at his own pace. If you take a look at the e-courses or electronic classes, you can adjust the speed. If you don't like the pace of the professor, you can increase the speed, or if you think he's too fast, you can decrease the speed. You can learn at your own pace, at your own time. That is the advantage of e-learning. But it can never substitute a mentor in inculcating certain values. He can never ensure that the possible human interaction which imparts certain critical thinking abilities, that all aspects cannot be replicated by technology. So it is this context that one has to understand when advocating technology as a method to advance certain skills and certain knowledge. Ultimately, we still need teachers to have that human touch and ensure that certain values are imparted to the student. The second article for the day is taken from the Indian Express and it is titled China Twist in Teesta Challenge. So, what is this Teesta Challenge? Basically, India and Bangladesh have a common river basin of the river called Teesta. So, from a lot of time, India and Bangladesh have been trying to arrive at a water sharing agreement of this Teesta river. However, talks have not progressed, and it is in this context China's intervention should be a warning sign for India to ensure that Bangladesh does not engage with China. So the news here is Bangladesh has been looking for engagement with China to ensure that a loan of 1 billion US dollars is given to Bangladesh for managing the river basin of Teesta. So when we are talking about Teesta river basin management, we are looking at this proposal through the lens of Bangladesh, which has been struggling to control floods because Bangladesh is one of the lowest lying areas in across the globe, not just in Asia but across the globe. So the low-lying areas are frequently inundated by floods in monsoon, and tackling the water crisis in summers is also becoming extremely important for survival of Bangladeshis. So this long-standing dispute and the status quo has given China an opportunity to intervene. So what is the kind of relationship that India and Bangladesh share? To start with, India has benefited from the crackdown that Bangladeshi government has shown towards anti-India outfit, and we were benefited significantly with respect to internal security. Now when we are talking about the other aspect of trade, Bangladesh is India's biggest trading partner in South Asia, and Bangladesh benefited from its economic and development partnership with our country. So India exports nearly 9.2 billion US dollars worth and imports $1 billion worth from Bangladesh. Even when we look at the people to people engagement with Bangladeshis, India grants nearly 15 to 20 lakh visas every year for various reasons like medical treatment, tourism, work related, entertainment related, everything. So, in this context, of late there have been certain irritants like the National Register of Citizens issue and the Citizenship Amendment Act from Bangladesh. Bangladesh had cancelled the visits of their ministers, and even the Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has expressed her reservations about how this entire process with respect to CAA has been carried out. So she said that while the CAA and proposed nationwide NRC were definitely internal matters of India, the perception towards CAA was definitely not necessary. So it is in this context we also have to understand that the Foreign Secretary Harshvardhan Shringla, who has served as India's envoy in Dhaka, flew to Dhaka in early March to talk with the Prime Minister's office and try to mend the relationships with our neighbors. So, looking at this as an opportunity to engage with Bangladesh, which is our immediate neighbor, China has intervened and used its typical checkbook diplomatic style to win over the Bangladeshi government. So, as a result, it offered a whopping $1 billion for just river management of Teesta. So, even after the CAA, there have been certain contentious issues like Tablighi Jamaat members and the lockdown that was imposed on those people, the Bangladeshi citizens in specific, the request for urgent reopening of visa issuance during this lockdown, and there were certain other issues also like the fishing partnership between India and Bangladesh. All these were certain contentious issues, even though not very significant in destroying the relationships that we have till now, but still major irritants in our relations. So China has been trying to widen the fractures that these issues created and is trying to use it for their advantage. So what should India do right now? The issue is very straightforward. We have to understand that Teesta is equally important both for India and Bangladesh, and we have to address their issues. Along with that, considering the fact that West Bengal election is coming up and it would be very difficult for the central government to deal with this issue, it would be a political problem for them. But if we practically look at the issue in the longer term, we have to address the problems that Indian side has not been able to deliver so as to contain China. That should be our larger agenda. That should be our way forward. This is the gist of the article.